Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Stella Defense Academy, perched on Nexus Prime, preened as the galaxy's premier military institution, like a peacock blind to phoenixes sculpted into the crystalline cliffs of a moon, bathed in the light of 3 suns. Ostentation incarnate. Its architecture screamed dominance, a monument to excess. Within trophy-lined halls echoing past conquests and meditation chambers pulsing with psychic residue, galactic elites groomed their heirs for war. The curriculum, a brutal ballet of advanced xenocide, diplomatic strong-arming, and menacing millinery, forged future overlords. The student body mirrored this exclusivity with supernova-level subtlety. Catherine nobles drifted on anti-grav platforms, their crystalline bodies shimmering, polished by legions of servants. Hegemony princes paraded meticulously styled tentacle hair arrangements, costing fortunes. The Crystal Collective dispatched their brightest geometric progeny, bodies morphing through equations that would inspire mathematicians to joy or despair. Then, there were the humans, those bipedal anomalies from a backwater planet circling a forgettable star in the blandly named Orion Arm. Walking upright like evolutionary mistakes, breathing a poisonous atmosphere, they dared call their unremarkable water-covered dirt ball Earth. Their presence at Stella was considered a cosmic jest or clerical blunder. Hailing from a death world, academies for a planet so savage its inhabitants should be studied from light years away, Earth scored a staggering 8.7 on the Galactic Hostility Index, rivaling sulfuric acid rain planets and worlds where wildlife hunted spaceships. That humans had merely survived. In a universe where humanity not only survived, but mastered interstellar travel, they were viewed with awe and trepidation. Nyx Blackwood embodied all that the Academy's old guard found captivating and infuriating about humans. She wielded that unique human blend of resilience and a defiant refusal to admit defeat, a trait that allowed her kind to conquer environments from frozen wastelands to fiery volcanoes. At 22 Earth years, roughly 47 Catherine cycles, or 3.5 hegemony lifespans, she possessed the casual assurance of someone who had grown up in a world where survival was a daily battle. Her flawless academic record only intensified her instructors' irritation. They had anticipated a Deathworlder to dominate combat while floundering in theory. Instead, Nyx effortlessly grasped intricate tactical situations, much like she dismantled training bots. Her essays on resolving conflicts between species were frighteningly insightful, revealing an understanding of war not as theory, but as a grim reality she knew intimately. Other human students displayed similar unsettling traits, adapting to new scenarios with unnerving swiftness, showing a remarkable lack of fear and maintaining peak performance under the crushing weight of simulated crises. While Keeltharian cadets would scramble for cover and hegemony, students would plead with the simulated threats. The humans would invariably charge headfirst into danger, their faces alight with what appeared to be genuine amusement. This peculiar behavior caused what the Academy politely termed cultural integration difficulties. This bureaucratic euphemism masked the fact that most alien students found their human counterparts deeply disturbing, while the humans seemed unaware of the unease they inspired, treating life-threatening situations as merely a form of recreation. The Academy's solution, spearheaded by Director Fendak, a refined Trialaxian whose species evolved on a planet where a particularly aggressive flower was the apex predator, involved implementing corrective socialization protocols designed to teach human students their place in the galactic order, a place apparently located somewhere between valuable but erratic and dangerous if unsupervised. These protocols subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, permeated every aspect of Academy life. Human learners were increasingly finding themselves allocated to significantly more daunting assignments. Brutal training, meager rations in the mess hall, the logic being Deathworlders can survive on scraps, and constant disciplinary scrutiny. When humans dominated combat simulations, their wins were dismissed as savage instinct, not true skill. When baffled by advanced tech, their struggles were deemed proof of low intelligence. The faculty had crafted an entire ideology around handling Deathworlder students. Professor Kelnick's combat theory published papers on taming aggression through calculated humiliation, while Dr. Excellent, interspecies psychology, detailed suppressing primitive urges in academia. Their work was mandatory for staff teaching humans, fostering a culture treating them like test subjects, not equals. This carefully curated system of condescending kindness had run smoothly for 3 years, creating human graduates who knew their place and rarely troubled civilized peers. The Academy patted itself on the back, having integrated a potentially volatile species while upholding galactic hierarchy. They overlooked that a death world breeds more than tough bodies. Humans possessed psychological adaptations aliens couldn't fathom, including a nasty habit of meeting persistent threats with explosive force. The Academy was about to witness this firsthand, delivered by a deceptively affable young woman conditioned to survive where hesitation meant death. Commander Thexul Grouse embodied everything the human students had silently endured. A Kael'tharian aristocrat with senators, admirals, and a poet ancestor whose work was essentially a drug on 17 planets, Grouse radiated the effortless arrogance of generations of privilege. His crystalline shell shimmered with colors alien to most species, and his implants processed data at speeds eclipsing quantum computers. Having triumphantly graduated at the top of his class, he came back to the Academy to guide a new generation, championing instructional techniques that highlighted the inherent advantages of advanced beings over their less developed counterparts. Gryonis specialized in crafting brutally realistic combat simulations designed to expose his students' weaknesses while highlighting the superior tactics of their alien peers. These exercises were renowned among instructors for their educational impact and their effectiveness in reinforcing the established social order. Assigning Nyx Blackwood to Gryonis's class was seen as an ideal opportunity for her continued growth. This human student exhibited troubling signs of self-assurance and skill. She needed a harsh dose of reality to grasp her place in the galactic hierarchy before her arrogance became a genuine issue. The administration overlooked a crucial factor. Survival on a deadly planet forged psychological adaptations as potent as physical ones. Eons of struggle in an environment where every element conspired to kill them had gifted humans with lightning-fast reflexes that bypassed conscious thought, prioritizing immediate survival regardless of social implications. The faculty was on the verge of discovering the profound difference between academic understanding of Deathworlders and confronting their raw potential firsthand. They were about to learn the perilous consequences of trapping a creature bred for survival, forcing it to fight for its very existence. Nyx Blackwood was about to deliver a comprehensive, visceral lesson in Deathworlder psychology, striking with the speed of a predator and the force of a supernova. The lesson would be swift, brutal, and eternally etched into the minds of any survivors. Part 2, where hubris confronts the inevitable. The advanced combat facility was built inside a modified cave system. Academy engineers, deeming nature insufficient, had augmented the space with holographic projectors capable of recreating any battlefield from countless galactic conflicts. Environmental controls simulated conditions from frozen wastelands to volcanic infernos. Gravity generators could make warriors feel like they were battling in liquid metal. Commander Gryonis chose Educational Scenario 7 for the morning, a recreation of the Battle of Proxima Divide, where Kael'tharians had demonstrated their dominance by crushing a coalition of 12 lesser species through superior strategy and refined combat skills. The realization that triumph over the Kael'tharians had been secured, seemingly with such initial ease? Rarely, the overwhelming odds or use of world-ending weapons mattered less than the lesson. The chamber shimmered with a simulated city's ruins, the dramatic lighting so theatrical you'd think the Academy hired Hollywood set designers. Jagged metal reached towards a sky of bruised purple and angry orange, while rubble offered deadly cover or spectacular demises, skill depending. 8 cadets, a galactic dream team to Gryalis, stood ready. Prince Mestar of the Hegemony levitated gracefully, his tentacled hair unmussed despite the chaos. His kind had transcended walking, finding it primitive, yet mastered killing at range. Quill of the Crystal Collective, a geometric wonder, refracted light into camouflage and data streams. Individuality was alien to this hive mind, a terrifyingly efficient battlefield computer, lost within the Academy's records. Concealed beneath layers of bureaucratic language lay a simple note that would have been darkly humorous to any human psychologist. Physical discipline with Deathworlders is strongly discouraged, results unpredictable. Evolution armed humanity with more than resilience. It provided reflexes honed to teach a brutal lesson to anyone foolish enough to underestimate them. A practical demonstration of natural selection in action. The lesson was quick, always impactful, and sometimes fatal for those who failed to learn. Emotion clouded their judgment, particularly among the humans, who consistently abandoned formation for so-called heroic acts, blatant displays of undisciplined combat. He circled the cadets, a predator savoring the hunt. Humans, you see, arose on a world where immediate violence meant survival. This history grants them a certain ferocity, but renders them unreliable when complex tactics are required. A familiar chill settled over Nyx's heart, the sensation she'd felt in her early days at the Academy, realizing she was viewed not as a student, but as a study in controlled savagery. She now knew this sensation all too well. It was an inner alarm, a primal signal much like the chilling prickle on her skin when danger stalked nearby. Today, Exercise Gravenus declared, "We are recreating the Coalition's devastating final assault on the Keeltharian Command Nexus. Cadet Blackwood will embody the desperate bravery of the human assault leader. The rest will exemplify perfect tactical coordination in a defensive stance." The premise was painfully clear to anyone familiar with the Academy's ruthless methods. Nyx was being deliberately placed in an impossible scenario, designed to magnify perceived human frailties, while her alien peers would demonstrate their species' innate superiority through flawlessly executed defense. It was a performance, a grim lesson with her as the doomed hero, her inevitable failure illustrating the deadly cost of inferior intellect. "The objective is brutally simple," Gravonic continued, his voice laced with the detached cruelty of one insulated from real-world consequence. "Cadet Blackwood, you must seize and neutralize the command post within 15 minutes, armed only with the equipment available to Coalition forces during the original disastrous battle. The defending team will showcase optimal defense tactics, preventing her success at all costs." He paused, letting his words sink in, before unveiling what he clearly considered the exercise's most profound element. Of course, for historical veracity, Cadet Blackwood will suffer the same crippling disadvantages that annihilated human forces during the original assault. Environmental systems will simulate the debilitating effects of Calarian neural disruptors, disorientation, blunted reflexes, and impaired judgment in primitive nervous systems. The neural disruptor simulation was a flourish of institutional malice. It would drown Nyx's mind in low-level psychic interference, mirroring the impact of advanced Keeltharian weaponry on human consciousness. She would effectively be fighting drunk, exhausted, and concussed, while her opponents functioned with crystalline clarity. Additionally, Gravenus added, a cruel smile playing on his lips, suggesting he'd saved the most exquisite torment for last. Gravity within the exercise zone will be doubled from Nexus Prime standard, perfectly replicating the crushing high-gravity conditions that pulverized human forces during the actual assault. Double gravity would transform every movement into a brutal battle of will against physics itself. Nyx would be fighting a vertical war in the most literal sense, while her adversaries enjoyed normal conditions. This exercise was not a test of tactical brilliance or combat prowess. It was a vivid, humiliating display of human deficiency, staged for the education and amusement of supposedly more evolved species. "Begin tactical positioning," Gravenus commanded. The defending cadets moved to their positions with a fluid precision born of superior breeding and relentless practice in these ritualistic degradations. Nyx found herself alone at the designated starting point. The simulated rubble offered scant shelter, an exposed stage for annihilation, as Nyx took her position. A subtle lurch heralded the gravity generators kicking in, her gear feeling twice its weight, while a skull-deep thrum announced the neural disruptor's insidious work. The icy dread in her chest intensified, laced with a familiar, dangerous edge, the primal fear of a cornered child on Earth, transforming into a focused rage that spelled doom for its source. "Exercise commence!" Gryonis barked, the simulation timer ticking. Nyx moved forward into the holographic ruins, each step a deliberate act of defiance against the stacked odds. The crushing gravity demanded conscious effort for every movement, the neural buzz turning thought into a turbulent calculus. Her alien peers held strategic points, leveraging their innate advantages. Prince Mistar hovered untouchable, his psychic senses piercing the walls. Quill had woven overlapping kill zones with the Trialaxian, whose spores turned pathways into impassable barriers. For the first few minutes, the exercise unfolded as Gryonis envisioned. Nyx advanced, taking cover, retreating from flanks, showcasing a valiant futility perfect for study. Gravity dragged at her. The disruptors fogged her mind. The scenario crippled her options. Gryonis's commentary flowed, dissecting primitive human thinking, lauding the defenders' advanced tactics. He reveled in Prince Mistar's psychic coordination and Quill's calculated defense. "Note the human cadets' continued advance despite overwhelming disadvantage," he commented, his tone laced with delighted professional pride. Time dwindled, only 8 minutes flickering on the timer, as she embodied the unyielding heart of a Deathworlder. Surrender, a sensible retreat, never crossed her mind. Instead, fueled by raw, visceral instinct, she pressed onward in a desperate, arguably doomed, offensive, defying logic in favor of sheer, indomitable will. Reaching the pivotal moment in the exercise, Nyx had pushed as far as the simulation allowed, displaying unwavering resolve while acknowledging the inevitability of failure. The expected finale? A valiant, yet futile charge, showcasing human courage and frailty to her advanced peers. Instead, Nyx did something that silenced Graven's commentary. Foregoing the noble, doomed assault, she halted, seeking scant shelter behind jagged metal. She was thinking, not with the desperate, instinctual fervor of lesser species, but with the calculated analysis of someone unraveling a complex equation. "Interesting," Granis murmured, yet his tone betrayed more unease than fascination. The human is reassessing her strategy. What Nyx was truly doing eluded her alien classmates and instructor. Adapting, not through slow, generational evolution, but with the rapid, tactical ingenuity that had allowed her species to endure a world where conditions could shift from hostile to deadly in an instant. The neural disruptors, intended to cripple higher thought while preserving motor functions, a kind of intellectual handicap meant to reduce primitives to base instincts, had overlooked a vital element, the reflexes honed over millennia, where swift thinking meant survival, and hesitation meant becoming prey. Ceasing her struggle against the neural interference, Nyx abandoned methodical academy teachings. Instead, she surrendered to the pattern recognition that had guided her ancestors through dense forests, tracing predators and finding escape from ambushes. The simulated battlefield transformed, no longer a complex tactical puzzle, but a hunting ground with predictable movements and clear lines of sight. Her opponents were not sophisticated forces, but predators guarding territory she needed to traverse. And Nyx Blackwood had spent her life learning to outmaneuver predators. She moved again, but with a transformed approach that rendered Graveness's earlier observations woefully insufficient. Moved with a desperate, raw urgency, driven by a primal need to survive this brutal, chaotic nightmare. Moving with the uncanny grace of something that had learned to stalk prey, where predictability meant oblivion, the defending cadets found themselves chasing shadows. Attacks evaporated before materializing. Pathways were abandoned mid-stride, and their fire scattered against a phantom that seemed to haunt multiple locations at once. Nyx had shed the constraints of civilized combat. She now moved as the predator she truly was, honed by a merciless world where hesitation courted death. "Fascinating," Grace murmured, his condescending amusement yielding to a palpable concern. "She's adapted to the simulation's very fabric." Prince Mistar's psychic coordination frayed as he wrestled with movement-defying tactical comprehension. Quill's meticulous defensive calculations crumbled before an enemy unbound by geometric logic. The Trialaxians' spore clouds, intended as absolute barriers, were mere navigational inconveniences to Nyx. With 5 minutes dwindling, Nyx breached the perimeter, exploiting gaps deemed impassable by the Academy's own tactical AI. 3 minutes marked the Trialaxians' swift, ignominious defeat. A simple rock, hurled with earth-shattering force, triggered the holographic injury protocols. The supposedly debilitating gravity had merely gifted her with heavier ammunition. A single minute separated her from victory as she stormed the command post via an approach deemed tactically absurd. Prince Mistar's psychic command faltered, unable to grasp or organize a response to such ferocious, chaotic speed. As the timer expired, Nyx's hand landed on the command post's holographic control panel, completing the objective that was designed to be unattainable. The simulation dissolved, leaving stunned cadets and a silent instructor bathed in the training chamber's sudden, ordinary light. For an eternity, no one stirred, each waiting for an explanation of the impossible. Graveness finally broke the silence, his strained laughter betraying a desperate attempt to maintain control. "Right then," he offered, a strained cheerfulness ringing strangely in his voice. "Perhaps the virtual world's settings weren't quite dialed in for someone as resilient as you, Nyx." He moved towards her, each step measured, as if he were navigating a field of broken glass. Reconsidering his earlier views about human potential, "Cadet Blackwood, clarify how you determined your final assault vector. Standard tactical models deemed that path unfeasible," he requested. Nyx met her instructor's gaze, her expression respectful yet inscrutable. "Sir," she began, "I ceased rationalizing in a conventional manner. Instead, I adopted the primal instincts of an earth creature." The words resonated, implying a depth beyond their literal sense. Grana studied her, his crystalline face conveying a spectrum of feelings from bewilderment to near apprehension. "I understand," he responded, though his voice hinted otherwise. "This unconventional thought process, is it innate to your species, triggered by necessity?" "Precisely when required, sir," Nyx confirmed. Grana averted his gaze, ostensibly to address the other cadets, but truly to avoid confronting something that challenged his established beliefs. "This exercise," he declared to the group, "underscores the unpredictable character of Deathworlder tactics." His words hung in the air as he gathered himself, and when he spoke again, a sharp, steely edge underscored his tone, hinting at his dwindling tolerance. "Unorthodox strategies are intriguing within the protected walls of a simulation," cadet. But authentic military engagement demands unwavering discipline, seamless teamwork, and profound reverence for established command structure. Individual acts of bravery might yield results in staged environments, but they cultivate perilously flawed mindsets when confronted with genuine conflict. A glacial dread seeped into Nyx's core, coupled with a grim awareness that the dynamic was shifting, transcending instruction. Granus wasn't merely teaching now. He was forcefully reclaiming control over something, someone, that had dared to undermine his authority before an audience. He advanced, his deliberate strides echoing with the calculated intimidation of a threatened aggressor. Perhaps a more profound discussion on understanding one's designated position within the chain of command is warranted. Brilliant maneuvers are meaningless when divorced from discipline and respect for superiors. He halted, looming over her, his size a blatant exertion of physical dominance. "Tell me, Cadet Blackwood, do you fully grasp the crucial necessity of demonstrating deference to commanding officers?" Nyx met his gaze, her outward demeanor as respectful as ever, but an unmistakable shift had occurred within her eyes. The Academy had invested significant resources into suppressing her natural reactions to danger, guiding her instincts through refined protocols and established procedure. But evolution, forged on a planet of predators, had endowed her with reactions far faster, operating deep beneath the threshold of conscious thought, now activated. Drawn by primal, threatening gestures that bypassed reason, activating responses meant for survival over harmony, she replied softly, "Yes, sir. Perfectly understood." Grace's self-satisfied smile implied dominance reasserted. With callous arrogance, he backhanded her, the blow staggering a normal being. The impact echoed, a sharp end to one reality and a dawn of another. A moment stretched, then Nyx Blackwood moved, tactical drills now a mere crawl by comparison. Not a calculated choice, but reflexes honed by eons, where predator and prey were microscopically separated. Her hand intercepted Grace's arm, redirecting his momentum in a way his crystalline form couldn't endure. The sickening crack of Keylarian bone was like shattering glass, but louder, complex. Grace's neck snapped, severing brain from body. He collapsed gracelessly, exoskeleton shattering beautifully against the floor, if not for the life it had held. The ensuing silence was absolute. Not surprise, but the stillness of reality irrevocably altered. Nyx stood over him, hand outstretched, her face calm, inscrutable, as if breaking his neck was just another exercise, executed with precision. 7 cadets stared, faces a mix of terror, shock, and something akin to religious awe. Their previously solid grasp on the cosmos had just been shattered by an extraordinary spectacle. Archie's feat defied belief. A seemingly simple earthling had extinguished a member of the galaxy's elite with the ruthless efficiency of a natural catastrophe. The training chamber's emergency protocols surged to life, their frantic energy betraying the designer's grim understanding of how terribly wrong instruction could go. Alarms blared, their frequencies deliberately engineered to incite panic across 17 species, while medical automatons desperately scanned Greyonis, seeking any means of intervention. After an agonizing delay, the machines delivered their verdict in a detached, clinical tone that turned disaster into a mundane bulletin. Subject presents complete cervical severance, coupled with terminal neural disruption. Remedial action, impossible. Nyx finally stirred, her outstretched hand descending as she met the gaze of her peers with the same quiet respect she'd displayed previously. "I believe we are finished here," she murmured. "Shall I proceed to administrative for evaluation?" Her calm inquiry hung, a surreal island of normalcy in a sea of chaos, a perfectly reasonable request amidst utter unreason. 7 cadets, alien to the core, remained transfixed, even as emergency systems struggled to process an accident of fatal proportions. Prince Mistar, his usual confidence shattered, managed a choked whisper. You killed him?" "Affirmative," Nix responded with a chilling matter-of-factness, as if remarking on passing clouds. "He initiated physical contact during the exercise. I reacted accordingly." "Accordingly?" Quill's geometric form twisted in a display of profound bewilderment. "You extinguished a teacher for a mere reprimand?" Nix regarded the shifting crystal with what seemed like genuine perplexity. "He assaulted me," she stated plainly. "I defended myself. This is how it resolves." Her words carried depths her classmates were only beginning to plumb. On Earth, physical violence was not mere discipline or a show of power. It was a primal trigger, a survival imperative demanding immediate, decisive counteraction. The Academy had tragically misjudged the human psyche, failing to grasp that their minor corrections would register as lethal assaults, demanding complete and utter neutralization. The training center's massive doors flew apart with such startling force, it was clear the disastrous news had already shaken the Academy's administration to its core. At once, security surged into the chamber, weapons raised, their faces etched with a spectrum of emotions, from disciplined focus to barely contained dread. Director Fendak burst through the entrance, looking utterly discomposed, conveying that his interruption involved matters he deemed paramount above even student deaths. His petal-like fronds, usually immaculately arranged, were wildly askew, and his customary serene composure had fractured, replaced by a near-frenzied state. Ambassador Torres, dispatched by Earth's diplomatic corps, appeared in person, her shuttle having shattered several velocity thresholds en route to Nexus Prime. Her expression was that of one who had spent the entire journey calculating whether her species would face expulsion from the galactic community or simply be sterilized as a safeguard. The Keeltha. The Irian delegation, 3 Imperial senators whose crystalline bodies pulsed with suppressed fury, a fleet admiral whose tactical implants churned through invasion strategies, and a legal advocate perfectly evolved for interstellar law debates, arrived seeking instant retribution, reparations, and corrective actions regarding humanity's place in the galaxy. Director Fendak, struggling to maintain composure, seemed desperate to prevent his academy from becoming ground zero in an interstellar conflict. His floral fronds, though meticulously arranged, showed wilted edges from profound stress. Nyx, apparently serene despite 17 civilizations judging if her actions were self-defense or an act of war, sat attentively in the witness chair, dressed in her formal uniform, an attire that only heightened her perceived danger. "The facts," Senator Keith of Calthera began, his voice vibrating with barely contained rage, "are stark. A primitive human murdered a Caltherian noble during a standard training exercise. This isn't mere violence. It's an assault on galactic order." He gestured toward Nyx, light flashing from his form in a beautiful yet menacing display that demanded her destruction. Commander Gryonish was implementing typical discipline when this creature responded with fatal force. Such disproportionate aggression proves why Deathworlders cannot be integrated into civilized society. Ambassador Torres stood, her poise reflecting the weight of her species' fate. "With respect, Senator, the truth is far more intricate. These reflexes, vital for human combat prowess, render us a lethal force when threatened. Evolution favors life, not judicious responses." The tribunal revisited accounts from 7 alien observers, revealing a pattern of prejudice masked as education. Prince Mistar, seemingly grappling with guilt, conceded the exercises aimed to showcase human weakness, not cultivate skills. "We believed," he admitted reluctantly, "observing Deathworld limitations would clarify intergalactic hierarchy. The drills were staged, not practical training." Quilm's precise testimony devastated the Academy's case. Its analysis proved the impossibility of human success under imposed conditions. The data proves intentional manipulation to sabotage learning for amusement, it declared with mathematical conviction, making rebuttal pointless. The probe deepened, unearthing a chilling system of mistreatment, a web woven throughout the institution, far exceeding the scope of one isolated event. Vulnerable individuals. Buoyed by the growing outcry, other cadets bravely stepped forward, detailing similar mistreatment. A grim pattern emerged from the Academy's own archives, revealing a disturbing link between assignments given to human students and the so-called character-building exercises euphemistically described by administrators. Director Fendak now faced the impossible task of defending an institution revealed to be systematically abusive. His justifications grew increasingly strained as the evidence mounted, proving the Academy operated a formalized system of species-based humiliation. The tide turned irrevocably when Ambassador Torres presented incontrovertible proof of Commander Gravenis's documented history of excessive force against students from less dominant species. His file contained 17 formal complaints, callously dismissed by Academy leadership as signs of primitive species' inability to assimilate into proper military discipline. Torres argued the Academy fostered a culture where abuse was not only tolerated, but actively encouraged as a perverse educational tool. Cadet Blackwood's reaction, Torres explained, was the unavoidable consequence of placing a Deathworlder in an environment where persistent harassment triggered an escalating fight-or-flight response, demanding neutralization. The Calarian delegation faltered, their legal counsel quietly warning them that further pursuit would likely trigger investigations into their own species' treatment of less advanced civilizations across galactic history. Similarly, several alien representatives realized that demanding justice might expose their own troubling histories to uncomfortable scrutiny. After 3 agonizing days of deliberation, punctuated by governments quietly withdrawing their support for punishing humanity, the final verdict arrived. The tribunal concluded that while Nix's reaction was disproportionate, it was both legally justifiable and neurologically inevitable under the circumstances. Director Fendak, his voice heavy with the resignation of a man whose career was over, announced that the Academy would undergo comprehensive reform of its training methodologies and disciplinary procedures. All species-specific protocols would be reviewed and standardized to guarantee equitable treatment, irrespective of evolutionary origin. Nix was officially exonerated, though quietly reassigned to a different academy, whose administrators had clearly absorbed critical lessons about dealing with Deathworlders. The Stella Defense Academy's image never truly recovered, its exposure leading to reforms that made it a far less prestigious, but considerably more enlightened, learning environment. The disastrous event transformed into mandatory study material at galactic diplomacy schools, frequently categorized as critical instances of devastating cultural misinterpretations. It functioned as a grim warning to all. Hadn't Commander Gravenis learned the crucial difference between evolved survival instincts and mere savagery, tragically underestimating the deadly consequences of institutional pride? 6 months later, Nix Blackwood, now a celebrated graduate topping her class at the transformed Centauri Prime Military Academy, proved that respect, not disdain, unlocked the true potential of Deathworlders. Elite units clamored to recruit her, realizing that soldiers possessing such raw power could become invaluable assets. A seismic shift occurred in galactic perception. Humans transformed from amusing primitives, needing guidance, to formidable allies whose friendship outweighed the risks of their hostility. Quietly, revised diplomatic strategies acknowledged this profound change, prioritizing the avoidance of actions triggering life or death responses. Commander Gravenis posthumously received the Calarian Medal of Educational Excellence, the citation carefully omitting the specifics of his methods or their outcome. His family discreetly resolved the wrongful death claim, understanding that public scrutiny of Deathworlder psychology would likely prove unfavorable. A memorial plaque appeared at the academy, emphasizing the importance of culturally sensitive education, though most students remained unaware it commemorated the time a human cadet killed an instructor. Lost within the academy's records, concealed beneath layers of bureaucratic language, lay a simple note that would have been darkly humorous to any human psychologist. Physical discipline with Deathworlders is strongly discouraged, results unpredictable. Evolution armed humanity with more than resilience. It provided reflexes honed to teach a brutal lesson to anyone foolish enough to underestimate them. A practical demonstration of natural selection in action. The lesson was quick, always impactful, and sometimes fatal for those who failed to learn.